Welcome to GM Tips. This is GM Rick again, and I hope you're doing great. I decided to take a little bit of a lunch break and do another GM Tips for you guys. And today I'm going to do a little bit again on another Pathfinder material. Hopefully, I'll get some more of the 5e stuff as I go along. I've got some of the PDFs, so I'll go through some of those and read. But most of you guys in Dungeons and Dragons side have a lot of the material, so it's really easy for you guys to discern whether it's good or not. But sometimes these things are really good no matter the system. Now, Pathfinder came up with Inter-Sea races several months ago, and I know a couple people have done reviews on it. So this is kind of my take on it, and as using it as a usable material, and I use it also on my Hero Lab. I have that for as well. Now, one of the things you'll see in the table of contents is they focus a lot on the human races, and I understand that, and that's something that the human races on Golarion are a big deal. They make up probably over a good 50 to 60% of the populace on that world. And that's why there was so much material done on these. Now, I know some people have said it's fluff, it's filler. Why couldn't we focus more on the non-human races when you're playing an RPG? Why would you want to play a human? I hear you. And I understand. And a lot of people don't want to play humans in RPGs. I know I play a mix when I'm a player. As a GM, of course, I love this material for me because it gives me a lot on the different races that are there. Now, one of the things they talk about in there is they go through a lot of languages. And I love that they have a lot of the languages that are in there, and they explain a lot more on these different languages. So, if you take a look, there's several different languages that are on there that you can take a look at. And so I like that they give an expansion on the different languages of what's what and some definitions, so that you're not just left hanging with languages and not knowing where they tie back into the world and the different races. Now, of course, they go through the more common races, and humans and their history being a large one. And there's several different humans that they've gone over in this book itself. There are more races, human races, than this on Golarion, but these are a large section of them. The Aslanti, the lost race, the progenitor race, the race that was the original Atlantis of this world is the best way I can put it. And this race, most of the purebloods are gone. Rodin was the last god who was around that was of pure Aslanti blood and that became a god. So he, with that, died a lot of the pure-bloodedness of that. Now, as a GM, you still may allow this. I know some GM friends of mine and some of my players who have GM'd have brought the race back. I'm a believer I like to leave it dead because there's a lot of cool things that you can find, and maybe a couple offshoot variants of the race. The Chelish, or Chelaxians as they call them. The Chelish are the descendants of the Aslantes that came over from Taldor, and they tie in with the Taldorans. The two have a love-hate relationship with each other. The Chelish broke off from the Taldoran Empire in its height and at its greatness, as did the Andorans from the Chelish and from the Taldans. So they all have Taldan blood and Aslanti blood in them that is mixed. You have the Girundi. Now, the Girundi are a micmash of everything, most of the races that are on the southern continent. A lot of them liken them to the Jitska Imperium, the Takritian League, ancient Osirian, and the Shori Empire. So there's a lot there when it comes to that race, and it's a broad swatch. I mean, the Girundi, they give a good overview, but it's basically a lot of different races put together. They also talk about the Kelishites. And the best way I kind of go with the Gurundis would be like your Egyptians, your some of the West African and or Arabic races. They're kind of a micmash between an African and another type of dark-skinned race that basically come together and give it a lighter skin. The Kelishites, those are your Persian races that are on this world. A lot of them are your Persian, your like Lebanese races. They would all fall under the Kelishite purview. And I'm just giving you things that you can liken it to in our world that gives you an idea. The Kelids. The Kelids are basically your Conan the Barbarian barbarians. They're the dark-haired barbarian types that have one name, worship spirits and a few gods and goddesses, but they're very primitive and primal in their thinking, and they were what used to have Aveston before Aveston was conquered by the Atlantes and by the Kelishites, which is where a lot of these races progenitively come from. The Mwangi. Now, the Mwangi, there's another term they use for them, the polyglots. And it's basically just saying like an African. It would be like saying this person's an African. They don't pick a country. They're different tribes. There's so many different tribes and descendant tribes. And they do in the jungle, the heart of the jungle, they go through some of the different major tribes, as does Sargava, the Lost Colony. Both of those give you a real take on these, and so does this book. It goes in and dives into some of the major tribes. The Shonti. The Shonti are a swarthy barbarian of the north. They a lot of times clash and also have a rough friendship with what are the Ulfin, or the basically the Shonti would be the horse barbarians and some of the barbarians of the eastern steppes. And I know they kind of moved them around on this world to several different places. They're a sister group to the Varicians. The Varicians are more of your gypsy type of people that are in the north. And then your Vudrani. And then they throw in some other ones at the end, which is really nice. So as you can see, they give you the appearance, the society, the faith and culture. They give you a couple things that you want to know when playing these races. They talk about the descent, how they relate to other people, and how they will be as adventurers. So again, it gives you at least an idea on each of these races, how they believe, how they think, what's important to them, what is their major driving motivations. So when you play these races, you can play them closer to what they were meant to be. You don't have to as a player necessarily, but I think it's worth going through and taking the time to at least get to know them better. I love that they also bring in a couple of the nations that were not discussed before. They do bring in the Tiens and go through a little more on the Tiens, but they also hit some races that are not as common but are on there. The Arcadians. The Arcadians, the best way I can note them is they are like the Native Americans, or what was the old world that got colonized over here. They are actually in this world a much more learned and much more united tribal people. They're much more educated. They're much more protective. They don't get conquered like the individual tribes did in the United States. The Kaldaru. The Kaldaru are a mysterious, olive-skinned, swarthy race. Something like maybe the Cypressians or the Sicilians in Italy and the Italian areas. They're kind of like that, and also maybe as well what was the old Libya. They kind of have that mix in them as more Mediterranean type of a people, and yet they're more secretive. They have the one city that basically in Senghor, that is their main capital, and there's only about 15,000 around. They used to be a large shory empire. They are not anymore. They are a declining race, but yet they kind of just keep it together. The Arataki. The Arataki are basically your indigenes that are up in Canada, northern Canada, Alaska, and some of the polar area. They are your tribes that are in the cold, that basically survive up there, that have some education and culture. The Iobarians. The Iobarians are a race mix of Taldans, Kelids, and Ulfins that took over Iobaria and turned it into more of a warlordish kind of country. It's declined due to disease and other things. The cool thing is my players are going to come up against the Iobarians in Reign of Winter. So if you haven't played Reign of Winter, you will at some time come in contact. I'm not trying to give away major spoilers, but they're up in that area of what is old Iobaria. The Jadwiga, of course. without even saying, the descendants of Baba Yaga, basically. They are a Russian Slavic type of descent. The Lirgani are what were a Shori empire down in the south in what is now the Sodden lands, or the flooded lands that are down there near the Eye of Abendigo in Garant. And then there are the Varki. The Varki also live up at the polar north. So they give some extra human races. They don't, unfortunately, this is about all you get on them. And so you don't get much. Sorry, mini GM. She was alerting me to something. Also, they do go through the dwarves and the different core races. So what do they do in the dwarves? They talk a little bit about the life cycle, the family, and how they're different. One thing I wish they did on Golarion, they do give some different areas that they are, but they really don't go into a lot of the tribes. They talk about a little bit of the Sky Citadels and what are there. They do talk a little bit about the Pomets, which are an offshoot of the dwarves in the south in Garant. They don't talk a lot about the desert dwarfs, which one of the guys, Simon, on Facebook does a great job of doing that himself and talking about some of them. So, you know, that's one of the nice things about that. Hang on real Sorry, Simon Munoz is his name, and he does the creative repository that's on Facebook and some other places. So he does a great job of fleshing them out a little more, as does Alex A. And Alex, I'm not going to do your last name. I kill you. Augunas, I think, is how you pronounce it. So he also does some work on the different races that are in this book that fleshes them out a little better. Unfortunately, they mention there's Arctic and desert dwarves and elves. They don't go through a lot of that here. They do hit a little bit of it. One thing they do hit is the Forlorn with the elves, which I appreciate. They spend a little time on those island elves and their citadel. That's an important thing. They do talk about the elf gates, which is another thing that is real important on the world. Gnomes. Unfortunately, they do a great dive on the gnomes, but you don't get a lot of the idea if there's other offshoot races of the gnomes. They put the wares. I always love they put the wares. They talk about some of the different things they like to do, the jokes, the sense of humor, and that's all important stuff. And the bleaching, which is important as well. For you D&Ders, they have a thing called the bleaching with the gnomes. And the gnomes of this world are a first world culture and race. They come from the Fey, chaotic lands. And because they are creatures of constant change, by coming to this world, they have opened themselves to a wasting disease called the bleaching. When they quit traveling, when they quit discovering, when they quit being inquisitive and reaching out and become sedentary and routine, the gnomes don't do well. They get a chance of getting the bleaching. And that's a horrific disease that just basically ends their lifespan over time. The half-elves, they do go through those. I appreciate that. The half-orcs, they talk some about the tribes and the families, the halflings. And again, they talk a little bit on the halflings. I really appreciate. They go a dive into the type of luck that halflings have. Halflings seem to have a lot of luck involved into their life, and they do go into that in great detail and really go through that. Now, the uncommon races, I appreciate they spend a dive on some of these races. That includes the Azamars, the Drows, the Geniekin, the Goblins, Kobolds, Orcs, and Tieflings. All races people like to play. And they do kind of similar in the same way to a big dive into them like they do with the humans. Where it falls short, and I will hit this, is in the rare races. They do not spend a lot of time on these rare races. Unfortunately, the catfolk, the androids, the changelings, the Damnfears. The Damnfears kind of get a good take in Blood of the Night, or Blood of the Moon, I'm sorry. Well, no, it's actually Blood of the Night. Blood of the Moon's the werewolves. The Fetchlands, the Gorians, the Gilman, the Hobgoblins, Ratfolk, Strix, aliens, and other things. They don't do a lot to go in. They give you a short blurb, a 2-pager, where every other one is about 6 pages. They do about 2 pages. And I'm sorry, it does not do justice. The Gorons are a plant people. The Gilman are what were your Aslanti slash survivors of the underwater, what they evolved into. The Hobgoblins, they go into that, which is cool. The Rat Folk, the Strix, which is another cool race, as are, you know, the Cat Folk and the Kitsune. They don't even go into the Kitsunes that much. They mention Trox and Kasasas and Triaxians and Lashunta, which are the alien races. And then the Dragon Empire, they hit. This is all they give the Kitsune. And I'm sorry, I love you guys at Paizo, but holy crap. I can tell you got tired of the book and doing it. Because the Kitsune, the Nagaji, the Samstrands, the Tengus, and the Wei Yangs, forgive me, I give you a 1 out of 5 on those. You guys really fell down, and people love playing these races. And Alex Augunas has really picked up the thing in Everyman Games, and I appreciate Alex doing that and really fleshing these out. He has done a tremendous job. And he's sometimes a third-party writer for Paizo. Great job of going back in and attacking these. Hopefully you'll do the same with the Aquatic Elves, the Galthians, the Gripply, the Skinwalkers, Merfolks, Venaris, Vishankas, the Werewoods, and the Wyverians. And they do give some great things on, you know, the races and what are the heights, weights, and all that, and weapons and other types of feats and skills. Those are all great. However, and they give some spells and some favored weapons. This book is good for the common and the uncommon races. Tremendous. Now, the rare races, it does okay. Until you get to the Dragon Empire and some of the other ones that are around, and you kind of just fall on your face. So I give the book overall, I want to give it a 4. For the material they do, I give it a 4. For the material they don't do, I give it a 2. And so I guess somewhere in there it'll come out to be about a 3 out of 5 on the GM Rick scale. Again, I don't think it's a horrible book. I feel like it's incomplete. It got the first part, the first, you know, couple 60, 80 pages, I'm thumbs up for. After that, not so much. And really, it would have been nice to have more on the Arctic elves and the other types of blends. Like, you know, Faerun has the different types of elves. It would have been nice to have a little more dive on each of those and where they play in. Because you do have the Mwangi elves that you don't mention. There are the halflings that you give a little homage to down in the Mwangi. You give a little bit to the gnomes and a little love there, and not really much else. And so I do love the book overall for the material that was done well, if that makes sense. For the material that was done half-cocked, it is what it is. So for whatever it's worth, I hope this helps you guys on my take on this, and we will talk to you again on GM Tips soon.